Okay, 5.0 mm, my size 8 knitting needles. And I have my yarn, it's acrylic yarn. Making a tail long enough for my stitches in hopes that I don't run short. Okay, and what I'm going to do is create my knot. Okay, so I have my knot. Go ahead and put it on my knitting needle. Secure my knot. And then I'm going to count 76 stitches, and I'm working the long tail cast on method for this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. So we have 76 stitches casted on in the round. And when you're knitting for your hat, you want to make sure that your circular knitting needles are a decent amount of length that will not stretch your stitches and that will be comfortable for you to knit as you go along, and it's not too tight. So this is a comfortable size in the round knitting needle for me to knit my this particular hat. This will be weaved in later when you're finished with the hat. So now what you want to do is you want to make sure your stitches are facing flat like this. Because if you start knitting and your stitches are starting to turn, you're going to have twisting in your knitting needles and your stitches, and you're going to need to take it out and redo it again. So what you want to do, make sure everything's flat, and you want to have your tail there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab our stitch marker because we want to know where we end every time we're going in the round. And that'll be one row. Okay? So what we're going to do now, we have to close our stitch as we knit to make a circular knitting. Okay? So what we're going to do is leave that tail hanging. Make sure your stitches aren't twisted. We're going to go ahead and we're going to knit in the round. And you can pull that a little bit and continue knitting all the way around. So we're just going to go ahead and knit. And knitting in the round, you will make a stockinette stitch. We are doing a stockinette stitch for the brim of the hat. Just keep knitting, knitting, knitting until you get to the end of your stitch marker. And we're knitting the English method. Okay, make sure nothing twists as you go. And as you slide your stitches up, you make sure that none of it falls off the knitting needle. It just makes it easier to knit if your stitches are a little more closer to the point and you can knit a little faster. And that way your stitches are not stretching as you knit because it becomes a little more difficult when that happens. So just make sure as you continue to knit in the round that your stitches are straight. Give a little more ease to your stitches. You knit all the way around. and you're going to close it at the end. Move your stitch marker to the other knitting needle. That's going to close as you go, and you'll also be able to close it when you use your darning needle in the end. So we're just going to keep going in the round and closing. You want to close it for your hat. And you want to make sure your stitches are not twisting, because then you'd have to take it all out again if it was twisting as you knit. And then you just continue on to the second row and you continue knitting. And don't worry, this'll close up very nicely once you use your darning needle to close it up. As you can see, there's a little opening, but just continue to kind of pull just a little bit.